Sister Andy?
They received their visa this week.
Oh, they got their visas this
Yes.
week. They wanted your prayers, number one, most of all. They want your prayers.
Yes. And
All right.
they are leaving on the 20th of this month.
They'll be leaving?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, our prayers were answered, weren't they?
Amen.
All right. In the 15th chapter, I want you to go back up there in verse, the 15th chapter of Exodus, verse number 26. And Brother Luis, I want you to read that for me. All right.
And he said, If thou wilt indeed hearken to the voice of Jehovah thy Elohim, and a thing that is right in his eyes do wilt do, and so give ear to his commandments, and keep all his statutes, none of the sicknesses which I laid on the Egyptians will I lay upon thee, for I am Jehovah the physician.
All right, Jehovah the physician, and that's Jehovah Rafika. That is one of the Jehovah titles. Jehovah Rafika, the Lord your healer. All right. Now who plagued Egypt the night of the plague of the firstborn? Who was the one that plagued Egypt? Jehovah himself. It was no death angel. It was not the avenging angel. It was the Lord himself that passed over Egypt. I mean, so many times you say that hear the death angel. The death angel was not the one. It was the Lord. Now, the Lord can be our healer, or he can be our judge. One or the other. He can be our healer, or he can be our judge. Now, let's go on down here. Verse number 27, Walt.
They came to Elam, where there were 12 wells of water, and 70 palm trees, and they encamped there by the waters.
All right, now let's look at that. We just barely got into this last week. There are how many wells? 12 wells. How many tribes are there? 12. How many elders had been appointed? How many elders had been appointed? 70.
Oh, 70.
All right. Had a shade tree for each elder and a well for each tribe. Just think about that now. We look over things so, just walk right over it and sometimes don't look. Okay? So we have the Lord our healer. Now the first thing he does when he gets, yes, Brother Walt.
On this bit of history here, in Saudi Arabia, this place still exists.
Oh, it still
and you
exists.
can go there and actually see the evidence of what happened there.
Yep.
It's not in Sinai, it's in Saudi Arabia, across the river,
Yeah.
across the ocean.
This area here really exists. One thing about the Bible that's not quite different than the Book of Mormon. Historically, the Bible is correct. And by the way, medically and scientifically, the Bible is correct and always juxtaposition with true science and true history and true archaeology. Our problem is people try to make theories to answer things. All right? That's the problem. If you go with the Word of God and you go with what's really there, you're not going to have a problem. Okay? Number 16, or chapter 16 and verse number 1. All right? 16 and verse 1. Jeff, have you got your Bible open? All right. 16 and verse number 1.
And they took their journey from Elam, and all the congregation of the children of Israel came under the wilderness of Sin, which is between Elam and Sinai, on the 15th day of the second month after the departing out of the land of Egypt.
All right. Now we're going to see some things here that's disgusting. It's disgusting for God too. Now, disgusting. Verse number 2, Brother Jeff.
And the whole congregation of the children of Israel murmured against Moses and Aaron in the wilderness.
All right. The whole congregation of the sons of Israel grumbled against Moses and Aaron in the wilderness. Now, they had gotten out of there by a mighty hand. When we have a mighty hand, we talk about the power of God. Had taken them out of Egypt. And God had a real problem with Israel as he brought them out of Egypt. He was having trouble getting Egypt out of Israel. All right? He got Israel out of Egypt, but he was having trouble getting Egypt out of Israel. And they wouldn't trust God. They would not trust God. They would not trust God. All right? So, verse number 3. Verse number 3. Let's see what they have to say. All right, Brother Mike, are you there?
And the sons of Israel said to them, Would that we had died by the Lord's hand in the land of Egypt, when we sat by the pots of meat, when we ate bread to the full. For you have brought us out into this wilderness to kill the whole assembly with hunger.
All right. When they talk about themselves, they talk about the assembly. All right. When God talks about them, He talks about them in military terms. This is the whole regiment or the whole army of Israel, and they call themselves the congregation, the gathering. We have gathered out. Now he said, we wish that we had died with that last plague. It's better that we had died in Egypt under the last plague. What plague was that? All right, the Passover. That's the one where, what happened in the Passover? Do you remember? They were supposed to eat. They were supposed to take the lamb. They were supposed to have at least 10 people so they could consume the lamb. They were supposed to eat that lamb with their shoes on their feet and their clothes on and their staff in their hand ready to go. And they're supposed to eat it in a hurry. All right? Because God was going to move them out of the land, and He says, I want you to do this for every generation for the age. Now, it says eternity in there, but it says for the age in the original language. Okay, for the age. And what age was that? The last time Jesus took that Passover, it was done away with. For the age. All right? Jews are still practicing that today, and the Messiah came, and they missed the boat. As simple as that. All right. Now, verse number 4, Brother Wally, verse number 4. 16 and verse number 4.
Then said the Lord to Moses, Behold, I will rain bread from heaven for you, and the people shall go out and gather a certain amount every day, and I will test them, whether they will walk in my law or not.
All right. I will test them, whether they will obey me, trust me, or not. Now, I want to read a little something to you here from history. Tells you a little bit about something. You know, God used many natural things to deal with people, but even if He used something natural, it became a miracle because it occurred in such a way that it never occurred before. All right? The bread of heaven. All right? Jehovah gave His people for the first time at a season of the year, also in a place which has natural manna. How many of you ever heard of the natural manna? Anybody ever heard of the natural manna over there? Comes off a tamarisk tree, okay? And where it is still found today in only certain months of the year, okay? It is ordinarily met in the peninsula of Sinai in the months of June, July, and sometimes even May. It is most abundant in the neighborhood of Sinai, all right? In Wadi, Faran, Shikeh, also in Wadi, Hadrondal, and Ta Yabeh, and some of the valleys south of Sinai. In the warm nights, it excludes from the branches of the tamarisk tree and falls down in the form of small globules upon the withered leaves and branches and lie under the trees. When it is gathered before sunrise, it melts in the heat of the sun. See? Now we're going to look at this. Now this is the natural manna, all right? By the way, it's manha. Manha. Now, you people that have had my Greek classes, what is this? Can you read this? All right. Right here. T, esti, tuto. All right? T, esti, tuto. All right, this means what? It is it, or this thing. What is this thing? Manha, M-A-N-N-H-A, Manna means the same thing, basically. The same thing. What is it, or what is this thing? They did not understand what it was. Now, they hadn't been out in this area, but evidently there was natural manna in this area, but the manna they had was greatly abundant. Okay? It says it lies under the trees, withered on the leaves. It has to be gathered before sunrise. In very rainy seasons, it continues in great abundance for 6 weeks long, but in many seasons it entirely fails. It has the appearance of gum, has a sweet honey-like taste. Okay? And when taken in large quantity, is said to act like a mild aspirant. There are striking points or limits, therefore, between the manna of the Bible and the tamarisk manna. Not only was the locality in which the Israelites first received the manna the same as that in which it is obtained now, but the time also is the same. It's the 15th day of the second month, and falls in the middle of May, or if not, somewhat later. A resemblance in color and form appearance is also unmistakable, for though the tamarisk manna is described as dirty yellow, it also said to be white when it falls upon stones. Moreover, it falls upon the earth in grains, and is gathered in the morning, melts in the heat of the sun, and has the flavor of honey. But if these points of agreement suggest connection between the natural manna and that of the Scriptures, the differences which are universally admitted point with no less distinctness to the miraculous character of the bread of heaven. All right? The miraculous character of the bread of heaven. Now I want you to pay attention to this also. This is very important. Now this natural manna only occurred in 2 to 3 months of the year. Okay? How long did the manna of God follow the Israelite people? Come on, put your thinking caps on.
40 years.
Yeah, 40 years. When did it cease?
After they crossed the Jordan.
That's right. After they crossed it followed them all the way to the Jordan, and then when they got into the Jordan land where the land flowing with milk and honey was, they no longer needed the manna. And that's where the miracle ceased. Okay? All right. It says that neither of these statements is so strained as to be made to signify that the Israel ate no other bread than manna for the whole 40 years, even after the crossing of Jordan. They merely affirmed that the Israelites received no more manna after they had once entered into the inhabited land of Canaan, that the period of manna and the desert food entirely ceased, and that of the bread baked from the wheat or the ordinary food of the inhabited country commenced when they kept the Passover in the steeps of Jericho, and ate unleavened bread and parched cakes of the produce of the land as soon as the new harvest had been consecrated by the presentation of the sheaf of the first fruits of God. Now these are some... How many... Did any of you know that there was a natural manna? Anybody?
First I heard of it.
Okay.
And I questioned whether it was adequate for them.
Oh, no, it wasn't. It would not have been adequate. The natural manna was there. But what God did was just make God said, I'm going to prepare a land for you flowing with milk and honey. Okay? Flowing with milk and honey. That land was prepared, and they were going to have an abundance. All right? All the time that Israel was in Egypt, how long was they down there? How many years?
430.
430 years. Do you think they've been observing the Sabbath down there? Huh?
No.
No. God had to teach them all of the basic rules all over again. Who wrote the book of Genesis? Did they have the book of Genesis down in Egypt?
Only a tradition.
Only oral tradition is all they had. How much of what they had from the book of Genesis, we don't even know. All right? But Moses wrote the first 5 books of the Bible, which is called the Pentateuch. All right? He wrote those books. So now when he gets them out of there, God's got to teach him what the Sabbath is. All right? And what does the Sabbath represent in all days, in all time?
Rest.
Rest. All right? Kata pa'u is what it is. Down cease. It means to cease. Okay? Rest. God was trying to teach these people to rest in Him, and that meant with the manna too. Okay? Now you go down through here, and they had left an area over there, and they're coming into this wilderness of Sinai, wilderness of sin out there. Now, do you think they left out of Egypt with a lot of cattle, camels, sheep, goats, silver and gold and all that kind of stuff? But now let's just think about it for a while. Okay? My little girl, she was funny. That girl has some insight. I don't know where she got it from. I don't really. I mean, some of the things she'd come up with. She'd look out there and she'd see a cow out in the field or something like that. And she said, "Daddy, is that a boy or a girl cow?"
Ain't but one kind of cow.
Yeah. Well, she'd say, "Is that a boy or a girl cow?" And I say, "Well, it's a boy cow." "Oh, Dad, it's going to have to die." Well, what happens to all the males except for a very limited few? What happens when they round up calves in the springtime? They mark them, brand them,
And
castrate them.
make mountain oysters out of
Yeah.
it.
They castrate all the males. Very few males are ever even saved. All the boys die. Now, when they left out of Egypt, they had food. Okay? There was food. They brought, do you think they were saving all of these boy things? Basically they were offering them as sacrifices, all right. But what happens to most of the sacrifice when they offered the sacrifices? What part of the sacrifice? Mostly the fat, except for the whole burnt offering. So they got to eat that. So they weren't out there starving to death. Their problem was they didn't trust God. They did not trust God. Now they said here, it would be better if we had died in Egypt. In verse number 4, then the Lord said, Jehovah said to Moses, now remember the name, Jehovah, he who shall become. This is their God. Even Pharaoh knew the name of Jehovah. When did Israel lay aside the name of Jehovah and would not speak it anymore? Come on, I want you to remember this. This is very important. When did they lay aside the name of Jehovah? We're going to find out a little bit later. When was it? Thou shalt not use the name of the Lord thy God in vain. And from that time, they would only write it. They would write it with a consecrated pen. And they wouldn't speak it. They referred to the name of God as the name or the word or Adonai. Okay? Give me a little more history also. How many of you heard the history of the Jews when they wrote the Hebrew text? How many of you heard if they made a mistake in writing the text, they had to tear the thing up and burn it or
I heard they were killed.
Huh?
I heard they were killed.
No, they weren't killed. They did make mistakes. They did make mistakes. How many of you ever taken my Greek classes where you've written or read my Greek manuscripts? I have made mistakes in them. I know how those mistakes can be made. I copied all of the New Testament at least once, I can guarantee you, in Greek. And I made what we call errors. I had to go back and correct them. That happens. I don't care how well you look and how you do it. I have done it all. Okay? And I did the Old Testament too. You make mistakes. But now if you were a Hebrew scribe, if you made a mistake in the text,
Just cross them out and make a new word.
okay, you would scrape it off and put the word in there. They would erase it and start all over. They scraped it off actually, and they would put it in there again. But if you made a mistake writing the name of God, you took the manuscript aside, set it aside, took it to the head rabbi, and said, I made a mistake in writing the name of God, or the name or the word. And they took that manuscript and they set it aside, and when it came time, they would bury it. They would not correct it at all. That was written with a special pen, and they would not correct the name of God at all. They would not rewrite it. That's how holy the name of God is, and it came from the law. When God gave the law, thou shalt not use the Lord thy God name in vain. That's why we have the name in John 1:1. In beginning was the Word, the name of God, the Jehovah. Okay? And that's where it came back. Now, they were still speaking the name of Jehovah. That's every time you read this here, Brother Luis, you have it in the original text, and there it is, Jehovah. If you're a Jew, you wouldn't read it like that. When it came to the name of God, the Jehovah, they would say, and said this. They'd skip over that name. They will not speak that name. You will not use the Lord thy God's name in vain. Now you know why and where that began. Okay? Let's go on here a little bit further. And the Lord, Jehovah, said to Moses, behold, I will rain bread from heaven for you, and the people will go out and gather a day's portion. Now, there was natural manna there, but what God was going to do is show a great miracle. Now, when Jesus multiplied the loaves of bread and the fish, was there fish and loaves there? Already. And all of a sudden, they just were multiplied. Now, here we have Jehovah, and who multiplied the fish during the ministry of the Lord? Who did it? Jehovah. Because there he was. Now, who multiplied the manna in the wilderness? Jehovah. All right, let's look at this. Sister Andy.
Brother Phillips, I went to see the dedication of the Torah that they had a few weeks ago here in one of the synagogues, and they were completing the Torah, that is the 5 books, and they said that there are 600,000 letters, and they brought a scribe from somewhere else came to write the last word in Deuteronomy, and that's what they said, that if they make a mistake in writing the name, they have to start all over again.
Yeah.
And it was interesting to know that 600,000 characters of letters.
Yeah, 600,000 characters. Yeah. I will bring bread from heaven for you, and the people shall go out and gather a day's portion every day, and that I may what? Test. There also is the word prove. Dokimazo. Dokimazo means to prove. To see if it is right. There is standards. You know, how do they prove gold and silver?
Fire.
By fire. They test it. And that's what this word means. All right? I may test them whether or not they will follow my instructions. Literally, it says whether they will follow me in my footsteps. All right? Well, they'll follow in my footsteps. Who was leading them?
He was.
Jehovah was leading them, and they were supposed to follow him in Jehovah's footsteps. All right? And I want to go back and tell you a little bit. Look over there at that tabernacle. Do you see the Shekinah glory of God there? That's what we call the pillar of fire at night and the cloud in the daytime. Now out there in the hot desert, in the daytime, the cloud gave them shade. At nighttime, they centered around they were all camped around it, and out flowed from that pillar of fire heat and warmth and security. How would you like to have a president like that? How would you like to have that kind of leader? How would you like to have that kind of king? That's what we call a theocracy. All right? That one you can trust in. Nobody's going to mess with him. God said, I'm going to put fear in all these people. I'm going to put fear in them. When you go in the land, they're going to be afraid before you get there. Before you even get there. Number 5. Wally, number 5. I'm going to make good use.
And it shall come to pass that on the 6th day they shall prepare that which they bring in and it shall be twice as much as they gathered daily.
All right. Now on the sixth day. Sixth day. By the way, what is the seventh day?
What's the first day of rest?
What is the seventh day called?
Sabbath.
Sabbath. What does the word Sabbath mean, Brother David?
Seventh day.
Huh? This is a test.
I know it
This
is.
is a test.
I always fail tests, Jim.
This is a test. Sabbaton. What does that word mean? Shabbat. Huh?
Seven.
No. What does it mean? What might it
We're playing this again here.
No. It means completion. It means a whole week. A Sabbath, I've said this before, but if I went to Dr. John's office over there and he operated on me and did his thing on Wednesday, a Sabbath day from that would be 1 week from there, which would be what? Next Wednesday. All right? That's a week. That's what we call a Sabbath. That means a week. That's what the word Sabbath means, is a week. That's the end of the week. That's a complete week. All right? And then the next day. Now, when is the Sabbath? What day is the Sabbath? Bonnie? All right. What day is it?
Friday evening to
Friday evening. Friday evening to Saturday evening. Because the Jews don't start their day at 12 a.m. Their day starts at night. They start their day off by sleeping. Where it's dark, in those countries over there. They didn't wander around out there at nighttime, running around with flashlights and Rolls Royces and Mercedes Benz, running up and down the road and in air conditioned and lighted theaters and dinner houses and everything else. When it got dark, they went to bed. So their day started at bedtime. All right? Started at day. Yes, brother.
I mean, you're going to come to this, but in the creation it says in the evening and the morning were the first day.
Uh-huh.
But on the seventh day, that was not mentioned because the rest is forever.
Mm-hmm. The whole story of the Sabbath. The whole story of the Sabbath. We don't need to observe the Sabbath today because our Sabbath is Christ. All right. It's good for you to rest. And God even provided rest for animals. Even they got to rest. Okay? God provided rest and everything, and he. Well, we're going to get into some of this stuff that's really, really neat. You want to see how a nation ought to be run and how a society and a city and a government ought to be run? That's where it is, right in this book right here. This will take care of it if you follow it. We haven't been following that for a long time, people. All right. Number 6. It says they're going to get, at the end of the week, the day before, they're going to have twice, they're going to go out and gather twice as much, and God's going to provide twice as much as they will. Now, why did God do that? What's going to get you in heaven? Huh? Faith in God. What's going to get them food on the table on the seventh day? Faith in God. All right? Faith. All right? They got to trust. You have to learn to trust God. Number 6, David.
And Moses and Aaron said unto the children of Israel, At even, then ye shall know that I am Lord, that the Lord hath brought you out from the land of Egypt.
All right, I, Jehovah, have brought you out. You'll know this. Because you're going to see all of the excess produce out there, of the manna. Now, if any of these had known about the manna, they were going to be a little bit, they said, well, it's not going to be enough. We won't have enough. We better go out there the next day. Because the manna didn't show up all the time, but God's going to prove to them that He's going to give them this manna every day. Not just in 3 months of the year. Number 7, Brother Blanton.
Oh, man, you make me put my glasses on.
All right, number 7, verse number 7.
Verse 7 of chapter 16.
Uh-huh.
Okay. And in the morning you shall see the glory of the Lord, for He hears your complaints against the Lord. But what are we that you complain against us?
All right.
Moses and Aaron talking.
Uh-huh.
Why
In
are you
the morning.
complaining to us?
Uh-huh.
it's God you got your complaint with, take it to him.
Yeah. Why are you
won't take it
complaining
to
to
him.
us? In the morning, you're going to see the glory of Jehovah.
Yeah.
Is that what it says there, Brother Luis? Tomorrow, you're going to see the glory. You're going to see the Shekinah of Jehovah. It's going to scare the daylights out of you. Now, when Jehovah passed over Egypt, they ought to learn the story, right? They ought to learn the story right there. What happens if God doesn't cover your sins? What happens? Can anyone come in the presence of Jehovah unless you have an audience? We're going to see some things here. Your grumblings. He hears your grumblings. What does the word grumble? Where's it come from? You know? You know the root of the word grumble?
My stomach.
Huh?
My stomach.
All right, where does it come from? How many of you ever been around a camel? Huh? You've been around a camel?
Camel's stomach.
All right. They grumble. They grumble and they spit and they moan and they groan. They do. You have to watch out. A camel is not easy to get along with, people. A camel will spit at you. You know that? He'll spit at you. You know what he's spitting at you? All right.
Sounds like my wife. Grumbling and spitting.
Well, you got an A+ today, Sister Kathy. Just for showing up. Grumbles. You act like a bunch of camels. What kind of animal is a camel? What kind of animal is it?
Beast of burden.
Yeah, but what kind of animal? Can you eat a camel?
No.
Well, they supposed to be eating camels? It's an unclean animal, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
All right. And Jesus in the New Testament, he used a little, what we call a hyperbole. What's a hyperbole? Huh?
Illustration.
It's an exaggeration. It means to overthrow. Hyperbole means an exaggeration. And by the way, exaggerations, people say, oh, you're exaggerating. Well, the Lord exaggerated. He used that figure of speech. And I'm going to tell you, I'm going to share that figure of speech with you. He said it's easier for a camel to go through an eye of a surgical needle than it is for a rich man to get to heaven.
I don't know why they said that.
Huh?
I don't know why they said that a little bit.
All right. Now let's go on to another one. Let's go on to another one. All right? Grumblings. Grumbling. Jesus also used another little figure of speech, a hyperbole. You strain out the gnats. You strain the gnats out of the wine. See, a gnat or a fly, or how many of you ever seen fruit flies? People used to think fruit flies came out of fruit, but actually they didn't. They just go where the fruit is. Fruit flies get around wine and grape juice and all that kind of stuff. He said, now, it's not lawful for you to eat a bug. All right? Not lawful for you to eat a bug. And so you strain the wine, you strain out the gnats, but you gulp down with one gulp a camel. Now, both of those are unclean animals, aren't they? Okay? Both of them are unclean animals. So you strain out the gnat, but you gulp down with one gulp the camel. Can any of you ever swallowed a gnat or a bug or a mosquito or something by mistake? You eat one in your ear by mistake? All right. You can swallow them too. You know that you swallowed 2,500 spiders in your lifetime in your sleep? If you let We can swallow these things by mistake, but I guarantee you'll never swallow a camel by mistake. That's not going to happen.
I have swallowed some mighty big ones, though, brother. You can hear my
Big
wife.
camel?
No,
So anyway, let's look at here now. You're grumbling like a camel, an unclean animal. All right? If you look at some of the original language here, you see a lot more than what you just see in English, okay? You act like a bunch of unclean animals. That's what he told them. Number 9. Number 9. Brother Jeff. 16 and verse 9. This is going to scare the daylights out of them. Exodus 16 and verse 9.
And Moses spake unto Aaron Say unto all the congregation of the children of Israel, come near before the Lord, for he hath heard your murmuring.
Okay, come on near here, Brother Wally, number 10.
And it came to pass, as Aaron spoke unto the whole congregation of the children of Israel, that they looked toward the wilderness and said, Behold, the glory of the Lord appeareth in the cloud.
All right. Now God's showing up here. You grumbling against the Lord, now here he comes. You ever have a bunch of guys out on the job and they're talking about the boss and all of a sudden they look over the shoulder and the boss is there? Huh? The boss is here. The boss showed up. Now, the boss showed up. And they're scared. All right, here we have not only this. Now, what happened the last time Jehovah looked at somebody? You remember? What happened the last time when Jehovah looked at somebody? Where was it? Come on, let's think back.
Moses?
Well, Moses was there, but what was the last time that Jehovah looked at somebody? It was the enemy.
Judas?
No. No, just before this. When Pharaoh went in the Red Sea following Egypt, it said Jehovah looked at them. And what happened when Jehovah looked at them? When Jehovah looks, judgment takes place. Before that, when Jehovah looked in the house of every firstborn that wasn't covered in Egypt, what happened when he looked? They dropped dead. And there was moaning and crying and groaning and everything throughout the land of Egypt. Then when Moses parted the Red Sea, Israel went through, and then here came Pharaoh. And then it says Pharaoh looked upon, Jehovah looked upon Pharaoh and his army, and what happened to the chariot wheels? They fell off. They had flat tires. And they couldn't get out of the Red Sea. And the Red Sea closed upon them, and they all died. When Jehovah looks, there's judgment. All right? And then verse number 11, Brother Mike.
And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying,
Terry.
I have heard the complaints of the children of Israel. Speak to them, saying, At twilight you shall eat meat. In the morning you shall be filled with bread. And you shall know that I am the Lord your God.
All right? In the evening, you're going to eat meat. All right? You're going to eat meat. They were griping because they weren't around the flesh pots of Egypt, weren't they? Now, they brought their livestock there. They had food. But they were grumbling. They did not trust God. God gave them water when they needed the water, didn't he? All right? And he gave them food when they needed food. Now, here they are sitting here, and he said, now you're going to get something else. All right? Number 13, Brother Wally.
And it came to pass that at evening the quails came up, covered the camp in the morning, and the dew lay around about the host.
All right? At nighttime, every evening, they had quails. All right? Quail. How many of you ever had quail to eat? That's a delicacy. I'm telling you, it's a delicacy. It has, how many of you like chicken breast? All right? White chicken breast? You know, it's white meat. Well, that's the way quail is. Now, these quail, they are called ortixa mega and ortigometra, all right, in the Septuagint. And these are called quail kings. Now, are there quail out there in the desert? Sure there are. But do we eat? Now, was there natural manna out there in Sinai? According to historians, and even today, there is natural manna, okay? But natural manna, and by the way, Brother David, this is another test. The manna that is tuto, or manha, what is it? What's it look like?
Looks like coriander seed.
Coriander seed, that's
White.
what it is. And
White
what does
coriander.
it has white on it, but what else does it have on it?
It has stripes.
Stripes. Going back up there, Back up to the 15th chapter and verse 26, Brother David. This coriander seed is white with stripes on it. What do you think those stripes represent, Brother David?
By his stripes we were healed.
By his stripes we are healed. Isaiah 53 and Psalm 22. All right. By his stripes we are here. Now, Exodus 15 and verse 26, Brother David. You got that King James Bible,
Yes,
don't you?
I do,
All right.
sir.
Kind of messed it up probably a little bit.
He said, if thou wilt diligently hearken to the voice of the Lord thy God, and wilt do that which is right in his sight, and will give ear to his commandments, and keep all his statutes, I will put none of these diseases upon thee, which I have brought upon the Egyptian. For I am the Lord, Jehovah Rapha.
All right, that's what I wanted.
That healeth
Jehovah,
thee.
your healer. Do you see how many ways that God is trying to teach these people something? So many ways. I am the Lord. I am Jehovah, your healer. I am providing for you. Now he's going to make an appearance.
They had to beat the manna to break it,
Yeah.
to make bread out of it.
Yeah.
Also,
They had to
that
crush it.
signifies the crushing of
Yeah.
Christ before
And
his
Jesus
death.
said, I am a worm. I am a worm, that no one should look at me. And the word worm there in Hebrew was the idea for this little worm that they used to make red dye with. But they had to crush the worm to make the red dye, and that's what they dyed their clothing with. Every single solitary little technical thing teaches us a lesson. Every single technical thing. All right? Now, the manna had to be crushed. Now, here come these ortiques, hepater megathes, all right? And they're like a chicken almost, like a partridge. They're big, gigantic quail are coming in here. They talk about these gigantic quail. Now, they were flying in by the millions into here. Now, when I was up in Nevada, when I went up there, I became the tribal hunter for the Western Shoshone tribe, and I'd go out and kill a couple of deer a day or something like that. And before I got up there, they were out there hunting with sticks. They didn't have any way to go or anything. Talk about poverty. This was extreme poverty. And they'd get some real hardwood sticks about this long, and they'd go out there and out in the alfalfa fields, there were a lot of rabbits, and they'd sail those sticks spinning like this and break those rabbits' legs, stuff. They could go out there and catch them. They could go out there and get a lot of rabbits that way. Now, it's said here that these people could go out there and just sling a stick or go out here and pick these big animals up, these big birds. They aren't little bitty quail, not tiny little things, but these are gigantic. This is what we call the ortiques mega. Mega in Greek means what? All right, when you can go to McDonald's, what do you say? I want a what? Mega size. A mega size. There it is, mega. That's what it comes. Great big white quail. These are giant. God is just absolutely lavishing upon his people everything that they need. He's using some natural stuff, but he is magnifying 100-fold, like Jesus in the New Testament. Those Jews ought to know what happened when Jesus multiplied the fish and the bread. They should have known what happened. Out there in the wilderness, the natural manna was turned into a profuse amount of manna. All right? And the quail, which were very large out there, just great droves of these great flocks of these quail cubbies, or whatever you want to call them, came in there. And they had so much, they ate themselves and made themselves sick. They ate so much. All right? Now, wait, just think about this also for a while. How many of you have weight trouble? Anybody? You don't have to tell me that. This food wasn't going to make you fat. It's going to taste real good. I haven't eaten a donut in 30 years. I mean, I haven't eaten a donut in 30 years.
I've got enough for both of them.
You ate enough for both of them, Brother Bill? All right. By the way, John Capel in Australia wanted me to tell all of you hi, especially the two that stand out the most in the class. I haven't eaten a donut for 30 years. Well, I tell you what, when I get to heaven, this manna tastes like what? Tastes like donuts, people.
Sure.
Yeah, like honey. Honey glazed donut, honey glazed hams. Here we have great big quail, and we have the dessert to go with it. All right, let's go on. The Lord appeared to them in the cloud, and I have heard your grumblings. I heard you acting like a bunch of unclean animals, like what? Where's that word grumblings come from? Camels. All right. And the sons of Israel speak to them, saying, at evening you shall eat meat, and in the morning you shall be filled with bread, and you shall know that I am the Lord your God. I am Jehovah your Creator. All right. He told them he was their healer, and now he tells them that I am your Creator. Number 13, Brother Wallet.
And it came to pass that at evening the quails came up and covered the camp. In the morning the dew lay around about the host.
All right. This is very beautiful. The quail came up. God mega-sized it. Okay? He mega-sized the quail, and he mega-sized the natural manna. All right? So they had more than enough. The layer of dew around the camp, and when the layer of dew evaporated, behold, the surface of the wilderness was like fine flake thing. A fine flake thing, fine as the hoarfrost on the ground. And verse number 15, Brother Mike.
When the sons of Israel saw it, they said to one another.
What? Now, how do you say that? Come on, let's say the Hebrew word. Manha. Manha. And then in the Septuagint, it is what? T-S-T, tuto. What is this thing? What is this thing? For they did not know what it was. And Moses said to them, it is the bread which the Lord has given you to eat. Now in the New Testament, think about this. Who did Jesus say he was?
The bread of life.
First of all, he said, I am the rock that followed you in the wilderness. And always in the Old Testament, it said that Jehovah is the rock of our salvation. And then he said also that I am the bread of life. There at the Lord's Supper, which was the Passover that he instituted in the Lord's Supper, what did he say to them? Take, eat, this is my body. And what was he using? The bread. Unleavened bread. All right, unleavened bread. Well, we're going to quit right there for this week, and we'll start right there next week. And 16 and verse 16. I hope you learned something today from God's Word. I hope it's a blessing to you. There is a story there, people. There's a lesson to be learned. It's not just history. There's a lesson to be learned. By the way, this afternoon at 4:30, I'm teaching about baptism. If you want to not learn about baptism, I'll be doing that at 4:30. Brother David, are you ready to come up here?
Good morning. You have the other Brother David this morning. Let's go over these prayer requests, and then we'll add to them if necessary. Dave and Bonnie want us to keep the prayers coming.